Guns, Germs and Steel. And this is my man Nosa, filmmaker, fellow creative. Now we're going to talk about Guns, Germs and Steel, this book. You've been reading it. What are your thoughts? What's the like 3 top things that you've taken away from this book?
3 things. Well, firstly, it's a really, really good book. You know, I would guarantee you learning a lot from reading this book. I would insist if you get a chance to read this. It's a really, really good book, on par with *Sapiens*, which I know a lot of people have heard about, *Homo Deus*. Now, 3 things about this book which I think are just amazing things. Firstly, it talks about plants and how plants have their own way of surviving, have their own way of spreading, ecologically, like us humans do. Which I found really interesting, because we think of plants as non-sentient things who have no sort of like goals or directions. But to kind of like, talk about them wanting to survive and using us almost as their means to reproduce and spread and disperse themselves is fantastic. Stuff like a fruit having a sour seed and a ripe outer core means that more people will eat it, but less people will eat the seed. Or if they do eat the seed will come out. So that's a really smart idea of you reproducing your species. Second thing is, it just really expands and changes the notions that you have about history. And there is stereotypes that we have for the reason why people are the way they are. Why certain people had guns, germs and steel, and other people didn't. And as you go through the book, you realize it's not these stereotypes that you've been raised with, maybe that other people are just naturally more gifted and so forth. A lot of it comes down to ecological factors. A lot of it comes down to ecological factors, which I think is something that we don't think about much. And finally, I just read a chapter called How Africa Became Black. There it is. So you may...
So I had a good little map there.
Oh yeah.
You just passed it.
Let's go in there.
Africa.
Cool. So, that may just be like, what do you mean how Africa became black? It always was black. But from this chapter, you learn a lot about not only the history of Africa, but the diversity of Africa as well. And it just blows apart some sort of preconceptions that you may already have. I don't want to go too deep into those, but I definitely would say, check it out.
Because like, I find it's interesting with Africa, like a lot of people don't, like when they see Egypt, like they disassociate Egypt with Africa. They sort of, like in films you see a lot of like Europeans playing the Egyptians, like, and they don't, and it almost, a lot of people feel like, it feels like Egypt's in Europe even, rather than in Africa. So it's quite interesting that you say that was an interesting, that it's not just black people in Africa. There obviously a lot of North Africans, like Moroccans and Tunisians and Egyptians. They're lighter skinned people. They're different ethnicities, etc.
But also to add on to that, there were native people in Africa, who were not black as we know black to be. People such as the Khoi, who are also known as the San Bushmen, and the Pygmies as well, who are a different type of sort of African. And evidence points to their dispersal across Africa and the disruption of their race by black farmers, by black invaders. So it flips a lot of the things you have in your head on its head. So for instance, there's another thing which I read today, which said evidence points towards a lot of the Semitic languages, which are the basis for the morality of Western civilization, as being from Africa.
Right.
A lot of people don't know that.
But it's true, because of Africa being the birthplace of civilization, as most people do know. but they don't necessarily accept. And you are right, a lot of people don't know as well, because it's not really the ideas. This information isn't necessarily like mainstream. It's not spread. It's not necessarily taught in schools, etc. I think I'll say one of the interesting things I got from the book was about how, in terms of tools and how that was powerful. Like in terms of like, there's a story about Pizarro and the Spanish conquistadors and how they went to South America and how they invaded with. I think it was 120 men. They destroyed the Incas, who had like over 80,000 men, because they didn't know about steel. They didn't have steel weapons. They didn't have infantry. They didn't have guns. They didn't have horses, because they were on horseback, and the natives of that area, they weren't used to that kind of force, so they were able to like literally tear them down, and also because they brought the germs over from Europe, and they hadn't built an immunity to the germs that the Spanish conquistadors brought over to Europe, and how that affected a lot of their people after the fact when they had come over. So that was really interesting. And even going back to the Africa part, when the Europeans came over to Africa, especially the southern part of Africa, like they weren't immune to a lot of the African tropical diseases, and they fell prey to that. But a lot of the European diseases that they had brought over didn't necessarily affect the Africans. So I think it goes into detail there. I mean, I'm not going to get into major detail with that. I mean, it's a really dense book, isn't it?
It's a lot. But I mean, just on top of that, I think, it also, the way it talks about things, you're just talking about diseases, almost as if they were a form of weaponry, almost if they were a form of weapon. And we sort of like think of diseases as something random, something that just happens and spreads. But what I think this does is it breaks down these things which we've seen occur across different civilizations. People have made tools, they've built things, they've started off hunter-gathering, and then they've gone to farming. And these are almost sort of like natural processes which are inbuilt within us as human beings. Almost like we all have the potential for this, like a seed has the potential to grow into a tree. But we need the right conditions for that tree to grow. So it kind of breaks down things we kind of see as just human-made, and these processes like civilization, city building, farming, and so forth, as things which are inherent to human beings and are basically a part of nature. So I think what it also does really well is it places us back into the paradigm of nature, rather than trying to separate us from nature. We are, and even what we see around here, like all these buildings, all these cars, this is just part of nature and evolving and unfolding and spreading out into the universe, I think.
Yeah, very true. I mean, you're saying about this area, it's very beautiful, as you can see. It's a really nice park, and I think that was a good point that you made. So Nosa, where can the people find you online?
So you can find me. Dreams of the Future is my YouTube channel. Filmmaker, as you mentioned, so you can find my films on Rise of the Orisha, which is on YouTube, and you can find all of my stuff if you type in Nosa, Nosa, and get ready for this, Igbnedion. Okay?
Nice.
Find me anywhere and all my stuff that I'm doing. So
nice. I'll leave a link in the description to Nosa's stuff. He's got some really good stuff. And if you like this video, like, share, subscribe, and don't forget there's a new video every day. I'm vlogging every day, new video every week. Check out the channel. I'll see you on the channel for some more book reviews, interviews, more people like Nosa, and have a good day.
Peace.
Peace.